Welcome to this CommunityViz video tutorial. This tutorial is about Scenario 3D. It's a how-to on exploring an existing Scenario 3D scene. Look for separate videos on setting up Scenario 3D scenes like this one and feature overviews. This is the 2D ArcMap and Scenario 360 analysis that my 3D scene for this demo is based upon. I've already been setting up the scene using the Scenario 3D toolbar, and one way to look at the scene is to launch the viewer using the Launch Viewer button on this toolbar. I can also launch the viewer from the Windows Programs menu, or I can launch the viewer by double-clicking on a .scene file in Microsoft Explorer. Once I've done any of those, I get my viewer and a particular scene. For most of my navigation through the Scenario 3D scene while I'm exploring it, I'm going to be using my mouse. And just to get some terminology straight, this is the mouse. There's a left button, a right button, and the middle scroll wheel. This can roll back and forth, and a lot of people don't realize this, but you can also push straight down on it and it acts as yet another button for controls. When you first open a scene, you'll find yourself high in the air above it, and you'll find yourself in this navigation mode called Maneuver. That's the default, and it's good for large motions. To use it, just click on the left mouse button and make small, gentle movements with your mouse to get a swivel effect. To zoom in more tightly close to the ground, use the middle scroll wheel. That also works backwards. Now, Maneuver, like all of the navigation modes, has a number of other options, too many to cover here, but you can get a complete listing by going to the Help system, go to Contents, choose the Scenario 3D Viewer book, and look in Navigation Modes. There you'll get this table of all the different modes of navigation and all the different options available to you. For now, we'll just hit a few highlights. The next navigation mode is called Fly, and it's a very versatile tool. To use it, just hold down the left mouse button and point in the direction you want to go. Again, slow, gentle movements are best to start with. If you find yourself going too fast, use the scroll wheel to slow your speed down. You'll note the speed is listed up here in the upper left. You can also fly backwards using the right mouse button. And when you're first getting started, you may find that you do things like crash into buildings. Don't panic, that's normal, that's fine, and it doesn't hurt anything. If you need to get your bearings, it may be useful to hold down the middle scroll wheel, use it as a button, and change your height. Get yourself up above the land, get your bearings, that may help. If you get completely stuck, use the full extent button to take you all the way back out, and you can start again. Just give yourself a few minutes of practice, and pretty soon you'll be flying like a pro. The next mode is called Walk, and this simulates walking or driving through the scene. To use it, you'll also have to use the keyboard. The W, A, S, and D keys on your keyboard are used to move you frontwards, left, backwards, or to the right. Now, when you first start walking, you might want to set your height appropriately. Hold down the scroll wheel, move the mouse gently up and down to set an appropriate height above the ground, like 6 or 8 feet. You can also use the scroll wheel to control your walking speed. Now, to control where you're looking, hold down the left mouse and just move your mouse around the screen, left or right, up and down. Use those keyboard controls to control where you are. Now, if you get tricky, you can use both the keyboard controls and the orientation where you're looking to get a complete effect. Rounding out the navigation options, there's this one called Zoom, which allows you to go to any point in the scene simply by double-clicking on it. And this one called Select, which selects objects in the scene, covers them with a sort of yellow cube, and then allows you to use this button, the Attributes button, to identify the attributes of that particular feature. To clear a selection, use this drop-down menu, Selection, Clear Selection. This cloud with a sun behind it is the environmental controls window. It gives you control over, for instance, whether the sky is turned on and off, whether you're showing some fog, which can obstruct distant views. This field of view, which is a zoom level, yes, but it also has an important effect, which is if you have a very narrow field of view, you can make distant objects like these skyscrapers loom over, or apparently loom over nearby objects like these residential buildings, or look more reasonable, or look small and insignificant. I haven't changed the scene at all here, it's just a matter of my field of view. And this is a psychological perception trick. The fairest way to view scenes, especially if you're thinking about visual impacts, is to look at several different fields of view as you explore the scene. Time of day affects how the objects appear based on their lighting, assuming they have lighting, and that's also affected by latitude. Shadows are sometimes not visible. They only fall onto terrain, not onto polygon objects, so sometimes you can't see them. When you can see them, they're the appropriate length based on time of day and latitude. Bookmarks may come with your scene. They're easy to use. Just click on a particular mark, hit the Go button, and you'll be transported to that particular location. If while you're working with a scene you want to save a bookmark, just use this New button. Flythroughs are pre-saved paths through the scene. Here's one called Commute that I am not using my mouse now. It's moving according to a pre-saved path. If I stop for a moment and use this slider, I can control exactly where on the path I am. You can also make new flythroughs for yourself. Again, just use the New Path button. If you want, you can create movies based on these paths for sharing with other people. You've probably noticed this table of contents on the left. It's just like the ArcMap table of contents. You can click layers on and off. You can move them up and down the list by dragging. And if one is highlighted, you can use this slider bar at the bottom to change its transparency. A couple of good reasons for transparency. One is some SketchUp objects like trees tend to look better if they're just slightly transparent. And the other is in a case like this where I'm just trying to show representational massing or sketching, the transparency gives us a sense of incompleteness on purpose. I can change the scenario if I have more than one scenario in my scene by right-clicking and doing Activate. As always, there's a lot more to explore. Do use the help and look for other resources, but this has been an introduction to exploring a Scenario 3D scene in the Scenario 3D viewer. Thank you for watching this CommunityViz video tutorial. For more video tutorials and CommunityViz resources, please visit the website.